Uro? In this economy? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Edison has challenged me to build a lands deck that has Uro and Submerge and some copies of Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, in order to turn on Submerge in every matchup. Now, normally, Submerge is this pretty cool but narrow sideboard card that you can play against green decks. And sometimes you would see something like a Delver deck playing this against Merit Lage decks as a way to just always be able to tap out for your Lightning Bolts or Ponders or whatever, but still just having Merit Lage locked down. Just put it on top of its library, which poofs a token. Well, if you have Yavimaya Cradle of Growth and everything is a forest, this becomes a free removal spell in any matchup. So, generally speaking, I don't think a lands deck is the way to play Submerge in Legacy, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second after I talk through this deck list. So I actually had a little bit of trouble finding a starting point for this deck list. I found a blue-green lands starting point that had a couple of Uro and most of the cards that I was looking for. In this current metagame, which is very, very combo heavy, I want to have a combo finish of my own. And my combo finish is going to be Field of the Dead plus Manabond, so that we can dump a whole bunch of lands in, create a bunch of zombies, and then maybe have a 2-turn clock on our opponent. It's possible to do some very silly things with this deck. And if we are playing the Dark Depths and Thespian stage combo, it is theoretically possible, I suppose, for us to go like land, Manabond, Thespian stage, Dark Depths, and then a couple other lands and go off on turn 1 even. So we have the capability of racing, but then we're going to have a bunch of things in the mid game here that allow us to refuel and just keep playing lands after lands after lands. I'm like ever so slightly worried about my colored mana source count. There were a couple more colorless lands. There were, I think, Urza's Caves in the starting point that I found for this deck list that I just chopped to get some extra like colored sources into the deck. Because if we pull these blue lands as well as the ETB tapped Hedge Maze, there's actually only 14 mana sources that play a turn 1 mana bond or exploration, which is maybe enough, but we're definitely pushing it a little bit, and there will be hands that will mulligan because we don't have the proper colored source. I am unsure if Treasure Hunt or Malevolent Rumble is better for this slot. I went back and forth on that a lot in deck building. If you play Malevolent Rumble, you can be closer to mono green, with Uro and Submerge being the things that you are kind of splashing here. Now, if Edison did not specifically ask me to play a lands deck, I would be using something like this as my starting point. I think if you are trying to play Submerge and be cute with it, Up the Beanstalk triggering Submerge is a pretty powerful interaction. And you can play like Submerges and Force of Wills, Hooting Mandrills, Murktide Regents, and get a lot of value off your Up the Beanstalk. The problem is Up the Beanstalk doesn't really work in a lands deck, in my opinion, because you don't really have enough things that are going to realistically trigger it. And as soon as you start playing cards that look like this, that eat away at your own graveyard, the cards like Life from the Loam quickly become worse. And you might not actually have enough instants and sorceries to make Murktide Regent look impressive. So if I was not asked to play a lands deck specifically, I would be going down a rabbit hole that looks like this one, although I am not really a fan of Temporal Mastery or Tarmogoyf that I found from this random deck list that I was using as a starting point. Final note about the sideboard here, I was asked to play a full play set of Submerge, so I have 2 in the main deck and 2 in the sideboard. And I am unsure if I am going too hard on Maze of Ith here. It Feels like I am, but I just have been so impressed by this card when playing the Lumra Living Wish Lands things recently that I don't really want to leave them all at home. And I was worried about the colored mana source count in the main deck. Otherwise, we've got answers to Blood Moon, we've got answers to Magus of the Moon, and we have answers to Graveyard Bullshit. I am on the fence about whether or not I should just play Leyline of the Void in respect of Oops All spells. But we have cards like Treasure Hunt that can put a fairy into our hand, and we can't really cast the Leyline if we do that, so that's kind of the direction I'm going. The Graveyard Hate that I play regardless is potentially going to be a little bit awkward with Manabond wanting me to dump my entire hand. So there's going to be some times where we have Graveyard Hate, and we're just like, fuck it, we gotta do our own thing and hope they don't have it. I am going to be pretty soft to spell-based combo today. I don't even know that I am going to try to fight it. I could get rid of the entire playset of Fairy Macabres to go and play something like 2 Fluster Storms, 2 Consigned Memories, or something like that to become a little bit more varied. And I think that is a valid approach as well. So folks, should you need any cards for this because you don't have your treasure hunts or whatever, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order, and they've got something like 100,000 unique Magic cards up on their website. So go shopping, find some sweet stuff, and support my channel while supporting your own Magic addiction. Collection. We're supposed to say collection there. All right, let's battle. All right, so you remember what I said in the deck tech about being a little concerned about my number of untapped green sources on turn 1? This is exactly what I meant. If this Hedge Maze gets wastelanded, things can be pretty awkward. But the hand is otherwise very, very, very powerful. I believe that against Suspected Blood Moon deck, I just try to disrupt my opponent's mana here. I would love to find a basic forest. I can cast a Treasure Hunt after an initial Blood Moon, but my life's going to be tough. Ooh, I will absolutely put a Life from the Loam into the graveyard. But that's absolutely a sign that my opponent should Blood Moon me if they have the possibility to. That's 4 mana, though. Okay. That is a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So wastelanding my opponent is less good here. Conceptually, what is my plan? Finding the Singleton Maze of Ith is good. Otherwise, filling my hand and then mana bonding and making a shit ton of zombies might be able to do something cool. I would really like to just hit a land drop naturally, so that I can go exploration into another card. I think I'm going to take a natural draw step here. So I need a Yavimaya to turn that on, but that'll be real good. This ETB tapped land on turn 1 probably cost me this game. Like, no exaggeration, not having exploration in play this turn is so massive. Do I try to high roll with Manabond next turn? No, I think I'm going to exploration. I have a lot of stuff here to cast, but this is just very awkward. So I'm going to take 7 from an attack this turn. So it's 7, 14, 19. I haven't fetched, so I will get 1 extra look. Chalice of the Void on 2 could actually be really bad here. Yeah, heads up play for my opponent. They knew what to do. Life from the Loam is 3 looks at... No, Chalice. So this are all off. So I take a regular draw step. It's an Uro, which I can't cast. So I think this Chalice on 2 effectively killed me, because I take 14 plus 5. Sorry, I take 7 plus 5. And then I am not super on outs from there, even if my opponent doesn't play other things. So we just stumbled and died there. So I need to play cards that respect Magus of the Moon and Blood Moon, because those are the cards that are going to beat me. Uro is fine if I get going. Submerge is probably worse than Dismember here. Like, if my opponent is turning lands into mountains, their Blood Moon effect wins over things like Yavimaya and Urborg. If you're curious about why, look into something called Layers. Maze of Ith is maybe not as good as you might initially think in a matchup like this one. So the problem with Maze of Ith is that when my opponent plays initiative creatures or things like Goblin Rival Master or Broadside that can just do damage in a way that gets through a Maze of Ith, like it's not enough. So I think my conceptual game plan is win with Manabond or Uro. I think to keep my green count as high as possible, I'm going to cut treasure hunts, and this is okay, but I really don't want to be seeing this matchup. Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon are pretty tough for me to beat because it either shuts off my win conditions or requires me to somehow get green, green, blue, blue, which might be impossible. Yeah, sure. All right, we ate a Leyline. I have a Force of Vigor for that. So now the question is, do I want Mana Bond or Exploration? I'll probably end up pitching the other to Force of Vigor. I think I want Mana Bond. I think my plan is aggressively Force of Vigor and then cast Mulch on my next turn and just dump everything into play and hope for the best. Ancient Tomb, Palace on 1. I could wait 1 turn for Force of Vigor to see if I hit a Blood Moon effect. I don't think I'm going to do that, though, because it's just horrendous for tempo for me to do that. So I will play a land. I will cast a Mulch. Ooh, I get Dark Depths and Thespian Stage. I mean, yeah. Manabond trigger, yes. We're just short on the number of lands necessary to make a bunch of things with Field of the Dead, but like this is just a 20/20 on turn 2, which should kill my opponent most of the time. That was a very, very high roll Mulch, obviously. So with Yavimaya and Dark Depths, that's a 2 mana we need for Thespian Stage, but it was pretty unlikely to get all of that at the same time. But that's Magic. Sometimes you get a little lucky. I don't think I am going to change anything on the draw here. I guess I could have swapped Life from the Loam for Treasure Hunt, given that my opponent is playing Leyline. This hand actually doesn't really do anything. It's good against Magus of the Moon, but otherwise is a pretty weak hand. I just don't have a game plan to win the game. I have a single card selection. I think I'm going to mulligan this one. Like, my opponent can also just Chalice on 1 and then just turn this into a garbage hand. Yeah, I like this a lot. I'm going to keep this. I think getting rid of Blast Zone. Blast Zone's pretty slow for this matchup in terms of answering cards that I actually need to answer. Here we go. There's a Blood Moon under there, so that almost certainly means that another one is coming, which is fine. I can Chrome Mox, or sorry, I can get rid of Chrome Mox and Blood Moon at the same time. I think I am going to keep my Life from the Loam and pitch Winding Way. All right. Oh, that's great. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the turn here. I might start this game by getting basics rather than Hedge Maze. I'll have to think about it. I mean, I'm going to fetch in response to that. Now that I know I'm not getting Blood Mooned this turn, I think I will go ahead and Hedge Maze. Yavimaya can go to Yard. So my opponent will maybe name Thespian Stage here. Maybe name a Wasteland. All right, they've chosen Life from the Loam in the dark. I don't think that's what I would name. Just throwing it out there. I think there were better cards to name there. I was an absolute luck sack to rip that off the top. But making Life from the Loam cost a bunch of mana isn't all that scary, right? Like, I will reach the mid game and Life from the Loam will become castable, whereas fully shutting off those other cards seems like a much bigger deal to me. Uro is great. I am always picking up a basic forest right here. Then we will Mulch, pick up 2 lands, and now I will start working towards Uro. Notably in deck construction, I was having trouble fitting in a second basic island, so it is possible that I can get Blood Mooned off of Uro completely. A Manabond. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Because the Life from the Loam is not doing anything immediately. I'm going to put a Misty Rainforest into play. So Manabond doesn't do anything. Life from the Loam is now castable but slow. Do I want to cast a Manabond to put another card into my graveyard? Let's say no. I don't think I need to do that. Okay. So, we'll pick up that basic island now. So, green, green, blue, blue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we have a problematic card in play here. Loop a wasteland into play. I'll put a second land of some kind into play. I guess it should have been Waterlogged Grove so I can draw in response to a Blood Moon. That was a mistake on my end. That is a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. I have left a basic forest in my deck that I can get when I take the initiative. Alright, Exploration is not currently live. Let's go to Punchies. I'll put a Waterlogged Grove into play. My opponent takes 6, and now we start trading the initiative back and forth. I'm going to pick up this. I'm going to cycle Waterlogged Grove here, picking up Thespian Stage. Let's get back a Waterlogged Grove, a Wasteland, and a Yavimaya here. And this is what I was talking about earlier, with this just being a castable card. We'll put a Waterlogged Grove in play so that I can get a redraw in a minute, and then I will discard some land, discard an Exploration. It's not live due to Chalice of the Void. And while I am drawing cards and gaining life with Uro, I'm not actually all that scared of Caves of Chaos Adventurer clocking me out. My opponent, is probably going to go down the right side for selection. They would like to find something that helps them stabilize this game. The One Ring maybe being one of the most optimal things that they could possibly find. Fable is good. Now, this is where I would like to draw some sort of Dismember card to take one of these out of play. Life from the Loam is expensive. The mana's not really a problem. Finding Field of the Dead would be pretty strong. I think I will dredge this. Blast Zone, pretty slow here. Boseiju does some stuff. I think I'm just going to start with a straight-up redraw, though. Oh shit, it is Dismember. So I think I attack. I think I'm not trying to take the initiative this turn. I think I am trying to get rid of this Goblin Shaman. Ooh. 2 mana Life from the Loam, 2 mana Boseiju, 1 mana Dismember. And put a Field of the Dead into play. That was one of the things that I was going to be looking for. Okay, that's a success. Oh fuck, it's 5 mana Life from the Loam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can 5 mana Life from the Loam to get Boseiju to eventually get rid of this. That's fine. Just always yield to that. We'll go Blast Zone, Boseiju, Waterlogged Grove. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I've already made my land drop, so I'm just going to discard some of that right back to Graveyard here. We'll discard like a Thespian Stage and a Ghost Quarter and a Wasteland. Alright, so my opponent now gets a treasure token and then gets to do some selection. Yeah, and they had some junk to ditch. That's fine. Yeah, you can totally just kill one of those. But then when my opponent goes to combat, I will dismember the thing that can attack immediately. I don't need to dredge Life from the Loam this turn. That is a Manabond. So, we're going to go to Punchies here. I didn't realize that this was going to be a 6/7 after I killed Caves of Chaos Adventurer. I don't think I care. Yeah, I don't think I care. I will 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Life from the Loam. Then 2 for Boseiju. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 for Boseiju, 1 for Manabond. Yeah, I can do that. I will put a land card into play. Oh, opponent senses some sort of trap and just takes the easier block. That's great for me, because that means that I can forge up Uro so that Uro is now bigger than Pyroglyph. I am at a healthy 23 life here. Now I Boseiju Chalice of the Void, which actually cost me 1 because I do control Uro. Now I Life from the Loam. I will get another Field of the Dead, a Thespian Stage, and I don't know, a Wasteland. We'll do that for 2 mana. Or sorry, we'll do that for 5 mana. Now I can actually play multiple mana bonds here. I guess this doesn't matter, right? I'm going to get the same number of zombies either way. And then I move to the end step, select yes, and then we're going to put some triggers on the stack. My battlefield is dancing around like mad. And I also just have like a waterlogged grove draw. I can Thespian stage, copy a Field of the Dead once again. Tough spot for my opponent here. They need something like the One Ring. Okay. That'll buy them a turn. But the first turn that they do not go and play a copy of the One Ring, I think they die. So, let's make another friend here. And let's, I guess, draw a card here. I'll dredge Life from the Loam on my own turn. A Mulch, sure. So I now have the initiative. Trap becomes awkward here because the ability is forced. So I'm going to go to Arena instead, so I don't have to trap myself, and we'll Arena that Pyrogoyf so it has to attack and can't stay back defensively. Dredge Life from the Loam. There is a Dark Depths as well. Life is good. I find a different Dark Depths. I will play more other Dark Depths. I will get some friends. I will cast a 5-mana Life from the Loam. I will get back Boseiju, Ghost Quarter, Waterlogged Grove, like so. Do I want to Boseiju anything over there? I don't really need to Boseiju Disruptor Flute, and Boseijuing the other things isn't that great, so let's take out Reflection of Kiki-Jiki before that is capable of doing something gross. That on Pyrogoyf is a way that I could like reasonably lose this game. And I am just going to Uro attack for a card draw here. Do I want to cast a 5-mana Life from the Loam? I would like to use 3 of my lands to make a Deuter, so let's say no. Let's just take a random draw. Put a new Thespian stage into play. Make more friends. And then at end of turn, I will go ahead and Manabond. And we do the dance. I have apparently used a shit ton of clock this game. I'm just now noticing that. Had some pretty intricate decisions. I am not in any danger of timing out. Again, as soon as my opponent cannot play a One Ring, they are dead. I mean, that's pretty good. That can go directly to my face. That puts me at 14. Oh, that is a new One Ring. That gives my opponent another turn. But now this Pyrogoyf has to attack into a pile of zombies. So that decreases the chance of just getting punked by multiple of these. And I'm just going to block this with like way too many tokens. Alright, a Pyrogoyf dies. End of turn. I will go ahead and keep the one with no ice counters. Make by 2020. And then I'm going to go ahead and charge up Blast Zone here. That's 1 counters, that's 2 counters, that's 3 counters. Now that can kill a Pyrogoyf. So I will go ahead and draw a card here. Dredge a Life from the Loam when I do so. I will not dredge there. Just so I can get this back. Go ahead and kill the Pyrogoyf. I guess I maybe don't want to cast some cards anymore. Like, I have only so many cards remaining in my deck, right? I guess I should not accidentally deck myself. Alright, so I will wasteland that City of Traders. I'm going to play a Blast Zone, make a few zombies. I'll attack with an Uro. Again, there's One Ring protection here. I'm not going to bother dredging Life from the Loam. Put a Maze of Ith into play. And then I'm just going to pass the turn with an Otawara activation available and, I don't know, 300 power in play or some shit. The opponent loses 1 to this trigger and is pretty tight on mana. I'm at 17 life. It's pretty hard to burn me out from this position, given the amount of mana that my opponent is on. And that buys another turn. Not very many of those One Rings remaining, though. I think I just have inevitability here. If I wasn't so low on clock, I would start thinking about doing some things like, that's honestly fine. Yeah, so Blood Moon can resolve. I will just Otawara that out of play and just take it back. I should tick up Blast Zone here, but I'm not going to. I will Throne of the Dead 3. I hit an Uro. I will keep this Uro. Gonna take regular draws. I'm a little worried about decking. Actually, I will put an Otawara back in my hand. Let's get Otawara Wasteland. No, let's get Boseiju in there. So Ottawara, Boseiju, some other land. Play the Thespian stage. Attack with an Uro to gain my life. And decline Manabond triggers. Oh, I forgot to wasteland my opponent's City of Traders. Whoops. Guess I'll do that now. They are down to 5. And there is our crushing inevitability. That's a hell of a board state for the end of the game. I should have played this game more quickly. I did not realize I was behind on clock until much too late. But this deck feels pretty strong. This is a very different game if my opponent names a different card with Disruptor Flute, like literally 10 turns ago, right? I think this was turn 2. If they name Thespian Stage or Wasteland, I think this game is a lot harder for me because naming Life from the Loam only slows me down. It doesn't actually stop something. You know, this game ground on to the point where I had like Boseiju and Ottawara ability to mess with permanents at any time, but I just did not need to answer this card at all. So I think this was a critical mistake because if they name Wasteland, it's not in the graveyard anymore. I think I have replayed it, but like I played an initial Wasteland immediately, knocking them off an initial City of Traders here, I think, and that slowed them down for a couple of turns and let me get to my mid game. Yeah, really, really good educational moment there. GG's.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is just the best place to keep your online deck lists. And one of the things that I love about them is that you can use it to keep track of what cards you do and don't have for a deck. So for example, in this deck list, I have all of the cards, so there are nice blue bubbles filled in here. And that's automatically ported over to your collection tab, where you can see exactly what cards you do and don't have.
Oh, I don't remember if I actually said the bounty on this league in the deck. Whoops. So Edison says, if I 4-1 with this deck, I get another Dealer's Choice donation deck list. And if I 5-0, I get $50. So, my hand's a keep. Like, I have Manabond, which is very good if it resolves, and if it's a bait spell that ends up eating a counter spell, like, that's not the worst either. The Submerge is unlikely to be good in the early game here. I don't have a Yavimaya yet to turn that on. But boy, this deck can make some zombies when we get to the late game. Ooh, opponent might be cooking over there. All right, so opponent has Baubles to recur with Emery. That alone is fine. There's some awkwardness here in that, like, Boseiju is batshit insane in this matchup, but it needs to be my initial green source here. So, say Levy. I think I'm going to lead on Exploration. I think my Manabond is stronger than my Exploration. And then I'll pass the turn here. So my opponent is going to effectively draw a ton of cards. If I were to guess, the reason why they want to be doing anything that looks like this right now is the card Stock Up. Stock Up is something that we as the Eternal Glory podcast have figured out is pretty damn good in Ancient Tomb decks, but then pretty medium in decks that don't. Oh, all right. So if everything is red, then my opponent probably has blue blasts. So the stuff I do might end up getting countered. This Urza Saga has got to go. That's just non-negotiable. I want to Misty first. Yes, I would like to return the bonus land. I don't think I'm going to have to worry about game 1 Harbinger of the Seas or anything. I'm just going to pick up a tropical island accordingly. I'm going to attempt to get back 2 lands here. Now I will Manabond. See if that gets countered. It doesn't. If I am willing to give up my Submerge, I can work towards a pretty cool line. I think despite the fact that I would love to get the Painter out of play, I am just going to do this. The cool line that I can work towards is that I can Ghost Quarter my own Boseiju so that I can Life from the Loam Boseiju back and then use it to answer Painter or whatever else I need to answer. But I can just die to a Grindstone here. Yeah. Dead. GG. So I have some Force of Vigors and some Dismembers that I can bring in here. Both will be good. I think, unfortunately, when given the option, Dismember is just replacing Submerge in a lot of cases. I need my removal spells on turn 1 in this matchup because I need to answer a Painter or an Emery that is played out immediately. And Submerge is a mid-game removal spell, not an early-game removal spell. And then I need to get Force of Vigors in there. Maze of Ith is not particularly strong here. It has some text, but it's not the best. Blast Zone is not the best, but if we go real long, I could Thespian stage a Blast Zone to get a Blast Zone with 0 counters and then use that to clear out artifact mana, tokens, whatever. So I think I'll keep it. That means I'm looking at 3 potential cuts. Trim Treasure Hunt, just the highest variance of my 2-drops. Seems fine. Oh, that's a weird one. I think it's a keep, but boy, that hand is weird. So if I have to Force of Vigor, I lose Mulch, which is my way into the mid game. I have double Wasteland for things like Urza's Saga. I have a Dismember for an Emery or a Painter. Like the stuff that's here is good, but I am like, I'll Wasteland that. I did not want to show Wasteland on turn 1. So, like, that lets my opponent play out a Grindstone, but I think that's fine. Can this be a hedge maze in post-sideboard games where my opponent could have Harbinger of the Seas? I don't think it can. I think I am just going to respect stable mana here and always get the forest that I don't necessarily want to draw. I'll take out an Urza Saga here. I've got Dismember up. Would prefer... okay, yeah, you can have that mana again. I'll repeat the same thing as last turn. But this is allowing my opponent to slip other permanents into play. But I really don't want to give up Mulch. Like, that card's real good here. And these permanents are not threatening yet. Ooh, I've run my opponent out of mana. Fantastic. That's going to let me get into this mid-game where I can start mulching. So, yeah, and yeah. Oh, nice. 1, 2, and 3. That does mean that I am discarding a card here. Probably just Misty? Probably just Misty, but it's close. Misty lets me get a second forest so that I can potentially Force of Vigor through a Harbinger of the Seas. Alright, opponent has 1 mana now, which allows an Emery. I will Dismember that and move on with my life. There's the stock up that I predicted. Life from the Loam is great. So I will Dismember that Emery. Do I need Life from the Loam to win this game? It does not feel like I do. Does not feel like I do. Yeah. So we're just going to do this and then kill with a Merit Lage next turn. Fully attempt to keep my opponent off balance. And this will not only stop this Mox Opal, but it will keep them off of Metalcraft for another Mox Opal. Yeah, Bobble as their draw for turn is a slow cantrip. So that is not the best for them. So they'll take their redraw, and then I'll play a Dark Depths. And I have a 20/20 at their end of turn, and they have 20 life. So we have had strong non-games in either direction, where I got paintered, and then they just got wastelanded into oblivion. I think I am happy with this. Again, if I want to play around some sort of opposing graveyard hate, I could swap Treasure Hunt and Life from the Loam. This hand looks reasonable. I will keep this one. Like, I have Force of Vigor for my opponent's opening plays if I need to. Like, I can take out this land and something else potentially. Ooh, Tameo. I like that. I like that a lot. That's something that doesn't eat Force of Vigor. Yes. So you, one of them gets countered. I want it to be you, I think. Drop Field of the Dead into play. Pass the turn. I don't think I'm attacking Seat here. I would like to get 2 cards with that. That'll cost my opponent a little bit of life for that to come in untapped. Now there's thinking. So what can my opponent be thinking about on 2 mana? Tapping out for Painter, cracking Clue, Disruptor Flute, absolutely. So in there, yeah, that I like. That is, I think, what I would name in their position there. Because, like, losing these lands is a really big deal. I think I'm going to take that out while taking out Seat. I think I'm just okay with that as a tempo play, because some portion of the time I'm going to Manabond my entire hand into play next turn. All right. So I think I'm going to take the 1 and leave myself with some options here. Holy shit. Um, yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay. So my opponent opted not to counter the Mulch. Unsure how I feel about that. Like, obviously stopping the Manabond there was good, but is the Manabond good if I don't resolve Mulch? Probably not. What did they pitch? They pitched an Emery. Okay, that's a relatively important card, I would say. So up to 1 mana. Yeah, oh, they had another one. Or they drew one. Pithing Needle is a great pickup for them. Wasteland's a great pickup for me. I believe my first land drop here is Hedge Maze. Yavimaya. No thanks. I'm going to be a little aggressive here. I smell the blood in the water. I'm just going to bounce Emery. My opponent does not have an actual land, and I don't really want my opponent to replay Lotus Puddle and then work towards replaying things like Disruptor Flutes and Pithing Needles from Graveyard. It will objectively make my life harder. Oh, there's Mox Opal in there as well. All right, Manabond, not super strong here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 6. Playing the Otawara costs me a zombie immediately. I have some really strong things that can happen if I take a redraw here. Even though this puts me further away from Field of the Dead. Yeah! Oh shit. I don't need to Wasteland immediately. So let's go on a treasure hunt, baby. There's 1 card over there, so this should be resolving. Oh! No! Opponent like literally had typed like you love to see it in chat, and then I whiffed on my treasure hunt, and this is not a land, a mana producing land because I said no to Yavimaya. My next turn is gonna be pretty hot though, in all likelihood. Like between draw step and Mulch and Manabond exploration, there's good stuff coming on. So if my opponent naturally draws a land, they can play a Pithing Needle from graveyard. I guess my Wasteland's not that good right now. It's when they get to 2 mana. Like, no, they could Pithing Needle Thespian stage, but they need the mana this turn. So Mox Opal turns on some cards. My opponent could have some interaction for my spells, the Flusterstorm type cards. So when I Otawara that Emery, that did keep me from casting that follow-up Mulch. But I think the Otawara on Emery was correct. Okay, that is a new Emery, just digging for something. Maybe a piece of the Painter combo. Soul Guide Lantern could be useful in the future. This extra mana bond is not exactly what I am looking for here. Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So there's 3 lands. I can dump them all into play at the same time with a mana bond at the end of my turn. Or maximum friends. So since these all enter play at the same time, Field of the Dead sees all of them. And my opponent does not have a land that I can destroy yet. This is a tough spot for my opponent. I don't know what I would do if I was on their side of the battlefield, because you need to respect a 2020 combo finish. You need to respect being buried by Field of the Dead. You need to respect trying to stabilize your mana. Like, this is tough. They can get up to Disruptor Flute mana here. There is a Painter's Servant. We're a little ways away from Grindstone plus Activate here. This Tameo is accruing clues, but maybe we'll stop accruing them so that zombies don't deal damage. And I think we are officially at the point where I need to respect doing ye old manual Dark Depths tick down. Oh shit. Well, that's gonna be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have exactly 7 names. If I use 2 mana for Life from the Loam, I can 4 mana an Emery out of play. Can I also Boseiju? So if I Boseiju and Wasteland, that's 2 of my lands. Life from the Loam is 2 of my lands. I can then make multiple land drops. Yes. So Wasteland my own Boseiju, 2 mana, Life from the Loam, target Boseiju, Otawara, and then maybe Yavimaya as the last one. Play Yavimaya as a land. Otawara, Emery out of play. Boseiju, Painter out of play. That gives my opponent a mana, but I can be attacking for 4 points of damage while Life from the Loaming back Otawara and Boseiju every turn. We're in a good position. Opponent is fighting nobly. Like they're doing great over there. But I think they're going to need a Force of Negation to stop Life from the Loam. They've got some serious problems. All right, they're passing the turn. I'm certainly going to dredge Life from the Loam. Like, I mean what you're working with. So we'll go Otawara, Boseiju, and Blast Zone. That is Force of Negation. That's what they needed. Nice. So I get 4 points of damage. And then my opponent is presumably just cracking a clue, trying to further their resources here. Yep. Yeah, so this is very much not a normal game, right? Like, it is turn 7, and this was the first time that my opponent had any open mana to realistically crack a clue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands. If I Ghost Quarter my opponent trying to get rid of their island, not knowing whether or not they have another, I potentially knock myself off of making Field of the Dead zombies, so I'm not going to do that immediately. Sure. That sort of card advantage is exactly what my opponent is looking for. And now this Tamiyo is pretty good versus my Field of the Dead stuff. And we will continue to manually tick this down. It could become relevant versus a Tamiyo. So would I like to deal 3 damage to my opponent's face or hit a Tamiyo? I probably hit the Tamiyo because Tamiyo returning the stock ups and Force of Negations and Thought Casts and such can be a big deal. And hopefully I just overpower that Tamiyo shortly. I make another friend. And now I do have lines where I Ghost Quarter myself to end up with 1 more zombie. I'm not sure that I want to do that because Urza's Saga is a thing. This is a great game. It's turn 9, both players are live. Opponent's deck is pretty good in my estimation. Alright. So they're fishing for something. Do I want to Ghost Quarter myself? If I Ghost Quarter myself, I can't Urza's Saga, like stop an Urza's Saga anymore. So I kill Tamiyo and hit my opponent for 1, or I could hit them for 2. Hit them for 1 there at 8, and this is lethal next turn anyway, so I won't. Alright, not the best draw, but it's fine. So Tamiyo, 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 base. Alright, problem answered. Lethal on board. Let's do lethal on board through 1 or 2 blockers. And I guess we'll do that as well. We're getting there. A few more turns, and we got a 20/20. Okay, Ancient Tomb is a mana boost here. My Yavimaya lets them tap that without life if they need to. Ooh, stock up is not what they want to be casting, because there is lethal on board. So that was their land drop, so anything else they need to do needs to be off of, like, Lotus Petal type mana. I am not sure if they are playing towards outs anymore. They're drawing towards them, though, if they have them. Lots of spells. Opponent says, GG, I wanted to see the 30 mana Merit Lage, but I couldn't live long enough. I was working towards it. Fantastic match of Legacy there. GG's. Merge gets another chance to be relevant. Keeperino. Wasteland and pass. While Wasteland is a great card against me, we can probably rebuild from that pretty easily. And I also potentially can just play on some basics in the early game. Not interested in mana bonding yet. I will fill up my hand much more before we do that. So we have a troll. So if my opponent plays a troll, I could find a Yavimaya to turn on Submerge. Okay, that's very good, obviously. I don't know what you take if you are the opponent here. I think this is a very tough decision. Winding Way is consistent. Treasure Cruise has absurd upside with Manabond in play already. And Submerge might be stopping a reasonable path to victory. without knowing the other cards in my opponent's hand, I do not know what they are supposed to take. They have taken the most consistent option there, which I think is reasonable. Field of the Dead is cool. I'm going to grab a basic here, and I'm going to treasure hunt. This could be dazed, and it is dazed. That's fine. I'm going to hold off on Manabond for a little while. I might be able to do something silly with Field of the Dead. And I might be hard casting a Submerge on 5 mana. Never mind, it's gone. I have lost Submerge. Do we count that as Submerge was good? Unclear. Ooh. Okay, so that requires me to play Boseiju this turn, which I otherwise was considering Boseijuing a Wasteland to just like not have my opponent wasteland my shit, but that's not where we're at anymore. So this is going to put my opponent in a weird spot where they potentially need to respect me casting Uro next turn, but also need to respect Field of the Dead, eating them alive in the end game. I'm not going to put Maze of Ith in here. I don't want my opponent to know that I have this immediately. See what they've got going on. That is fine. My turn is really swingy this turn. So that's not the blue that I need for Uro, unfortunately. I'm going to cast this. Do I want to Manabond? I think no. What if I get Wastelanded off of this, though? Like, I think the Wasteland is supposed to go here. Maybe I put my opponent in a very awkward place by putting this land into play, where if I top deck a blue source, I have an Uro, and maybe that causes them to Wasteland a Boseiju and let me keep Maze of Ith to check this card. I could sit there and think about that play for a long time. That's an interesting spot. So there's like 3 different lands that are reasonable Wasteland targets for very different reasons. Ooh, that's quite good. All right, they are going for the Maze immediately, so this gives me my window to cast. Oh no, it doesn't. 4 cards in graveyard. Because of the Douthie Voidwalker, I don't have the 5th card that I was counting on for the Uro. Shit. All right. So that is not a card with a different name. And the Douthie Voidwalker can continue to attack in even after I make an army of zombies. Ooh, this one might slip away. I take 7 here. And the Goyf will potentially grow more. Yeah, my opponent gets a Murktide now. Ooh. I think I'm dead. Opponent has stock up in their deck as well. Fuck, that's very good. Do you use it? Yeah. Don't think you use it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 6. But that is not getting me my Field of the Dead things, which require 7 different names. So I am dead on board. We got punked. Absolutely punked. So, technically, I did not see the reanimation stuff this game, right? I did not see Entomb or Animate Dead or Thoughtseize. I just saw Troll. This is more tempo heavy than I might expect from a full-on Reanimator deck. I think accordingly, I'm not going to mess around with fairies. And I'm going to bring in Maze of Iths and potentially Dismembers. I don't really want to cut any cards from my deck. My deck seems fine. If I don't die early like I just did, it seems like I have Crushing Inevitability. How do I make Dismember fit in here while also boarding in Maze of Ith? I probably need to play all of the Dismembers in respect of Harbinger of the Seas. Let's get rid of Ghost Quarter and then trim something in this column. Go with Treasure Hunt? No. Go with Life from the Loam, since my opponent has Douthie Voidwalkers innately. Yes. We have the 1 Life from the Loam anyway, but no reasonable mana. Yeah. How many cards can I realistically put into graveyard for this Uro? 2? Weird. If I get rid of the Uro, I can just Manabond a shit ton of lands into play at some point, and maybe do some Field of the Dead crimes. I think I hold off on dumping in the 4 lands, because I could hit a Mulch effect into Field of the Dead, and my opponent might cast a Thoughtseize here. And if they do, that's free value for me. I mean, that's great. I'm not going to do it this turn, but that's so good for me. I think I'm just going to take the Time Walk here. That's a basic swamp. That means Mulch doesn't get dazed this turn. So this can be Hedge Maze. Still think I am saying no to this. Am I fine getting Wastelanded? Yeah, absolutely. Dark Depths is not good currently. We're looking for 2 mana bangers. There's not a 2 mana banger. I will just make my normal land drop and pass the turn. Again, we'll just try to keep ripping a Field of the Dead off the top live to make a bunch of zombies. My opponent is putting no pressure on me. Nice. And in those instances, this is, favorable for me. Hey, that's great. So we mulch. That's not unexpected. I will play a Yavimaya and then pass. I think I keep making my normal land drop, because I do have like soft permission spells that I potentially need to play around, and Boseiju and Animate Dead can occasionally be important as well. Alright, so now opponent has blue mana. Opting for the non-basic. Okay, because they have Douthie Voidwalker. Sure. I want to fetch in response. Put an extra card into graveyard. Yes, because that is the 5th card for a potential Uro. I have snow-covered forest. Let's get regular forest here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Oh, opponent did not wasteland me in response to those. This has an intervening if, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah, that had an intervening if. My opponent could have wastelanded Field of the Dead to stop that. I should explain that. So an intervening if clause means that the ability only works if the action is legal when the ability resolves. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 differently named lands, even though I had 8 lands. So if my opponent nukes the Field of the Dead, I lose out on my zombies. Murktide Regent is great for them. My zombies do not block either one of these creatures. I'm at 15. Now it's potentially a mistake to wasteland Field of the Dead, because wastelanding a Maze of Ith matters a lot more. And I'm not sure that my zombies are relevant in terms of racing 10 power. But here we are. Maze of Ith off the top would have been justice. So, I hold this land in case I hit another Field of the Dead later. I don't have another Surveil land to help me out. Pushing that 4 points of damage doesn't matter here. I need a powerful 2-drop next turn to carry me through this game. I am not sure that a single Maze of Ith is going to be good enough. This is a point where a Submerge would be significantly better than a Dismember. Yeah, we got problems, folks. Dark Depths is not going to do it. I am unfortunately dead. GG's. I think I am okay with how I sideboarded here. I hedged against the Douthie Voidwalkers a little bit. I correctly identified that my opponent probably wasn't full-on Reanimator. I didn't bring in the fairies. I wanted Submerge there at the end, but I'm not really sure that it is correct to play it. All right. Opening hand seems good here. I think I'm going to lead on Boseiju Manabond here. I don't super want this Yavimaya to get wastelanded if that's something that happens, because it produces mana with my Dark Depths. And then next turn, hopefully I will cast a Winding Way that resolves, and I will do disgusting things. Underground Sea, Cameo, that is all fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm not to Field of Dead immediately, but Winding Way gets me there. If my opponent does not have a Daze effect, it's just batshit insane to go for Winding Way and just win the game with Field of the Dead on the spot. But I think I am okay setting my opponent back and slowing down this game. Opponent tanked for a while before playing that land drop. I wonder if they have a Wasteland, and if they were considering wastelanding me. Thespian Stage Dark Depths. Seems good. Let's see if this resolves. It's real good if it does. Like, real good. Ah, there is the daze. So we're going to Manabond anyway here, right? Because that's 2 mana to make my friend. We don't get the Field of the Dead triggers here. That probably doesn't matter with a 2020 in play. and we'll do it immediately to play around Wasteland. 2020. Opponent can chump block with Tameo for a turn. Actually, not so much, right? Yeah, so bam, bam. This gets rid of my Manabond, but it should kill my opponent, yeah. I mean, they played to their outs there. Like, maybe they have Brazen Borrower in their deck. So, this is probably the same matchup as last round, where I think we brought in these 6 cards. I think I did Submerges out. I've not seen Douthie Voidwalker yet. Do I want to go down Life from the Loam instead of Treasure Hunt? In respect of Douthie Voidwalker specifically, I could do a 2-2 split. It's fine. I'm very good at drawing mana bonds and explorations this league. Like, obviously not going to run the numbers on it or anything, but I think I am running above average by a pretty considerable margin. Ooh, I think I just pass the turn in Manabond next turn when I can do it around days. My opponent passes the turn. I'll hedge maze here. I have an Uro that may be doing things in the future. So bam, Manabond. That's in play. Trigger. Yes. So I think I don't respond immediately. Like, my opponent could have Brazen Borrower or equivalent. And they also could be an Entomb deck still. Okay, sure. So I get pinged. I'm fine keeping Waterlogged Grove in play. I think I'll go ahead and make it now to play around Wasteland. And I'll pick up a Forest so that Harbinger of the Seas doesn't take me off one of my colors. And do the thing. This also conveniently puts exactly 5 cards into Graveyard for Uro. Uro obviously not the best in the face of Orcish Bowmaster. Hey, we played around Wasteland successfully. There's Petty Theft, sure. Opponent can now attempt to Wasteland me off of a colored source to keep me off of Uro. We'll just maze one of these. Take one. Hey. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll leave a Dark Depths. In there. So I get pinged for 1 here. But the Uro draw is like very easily worth that 1 life. Opponent's got another land drop. Got a Goyf. We have a Harbinger of the Seas. Sure. I have my colors and I have an Uro in play. This is not the end of the world. It's obviously bad. It's not the end of the world. Let's Mulch, Osage and Wasteland. Sure. I am fine attacking here. Ooh. That Otawara is not bad. Okay, so my opponent's just going to take that hit. Go to 12. So I will cast an Exploration, which allows me to play Osage as a land and hold up an Otawara activation, which I don't even necessarily need to do immediately. And just kind of hold that until I need to bounce an Orc Army token out of play, or until I want to, say, Wasteland my opponent. Like, saving it until I find something like a Field of the Dead could be ideal. I have 4 cards. Otawara can be my 5th card. This is fine. Ugh. Yeah. That's so good. Well played. I had considered Otawara-ing my own Uro and decided against it. I think I'm going to just take this hit. I might want this Otawara the following turn. That's not very good. I mean, I'll play it because otherwise I'll end up discarding it in the not too distant future. So now I am likely to be on the line of Otawara Harbinger of the Seas at my opponent's end step this turn. I can't do it in combat or they just replay it because I am potentially just facing down lethal next turn between these cards and Brazen Borrower. Let's go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Otawara Harbinger of the Seas. I think I take a Waterlogged Grove, redraw immediately, let my opponent ping me for 1. I think I just need more looks at a 2-drop that can do something gross here. And we whiff. I'm going to take 5 damage. Well, I can maze this and take 4 damage this turn cycle and still be alive. But this is way too many mana bonds. At this point, I save this for Field of the Dead. I don't think I Wasteland. We've got a clock. Dead to Wasteland. Oh, I guess my opponent just replaying the Harbinger of the Seas also just beats me, right? Yeah, I don't really know how I beat that. Yeah, That'll do. Dead. We get another game, though. Submerge, I guess, is technically another out to Harbinger of the Seas. I think 3 Dismembers is enough. Like, the Submerge was not a permanent answer to Harbinger of the Seas, which is what I want. Yeah, opening hand, obviously good. Exploration is exactly the sort of thing that I want to see early in a game. And then we have a source of card advantage that uses the graveyard and one that doesn't, in case Douthie Voidwalker becomes a thing that matters. There is a discussion to be had about whether Tropical Island or Misty Rainforest Fetching Forest is the first card that you play here. This line is worse against Wasteland, but allows me to surveil if Exploration does resolve, which it did. And the surveil is relevant because I could hit something like Wasteland with the surveil that turns on Life from the Loam immediately on turn 2. So let's do that. Looking at Manabond, that's a fine card. I don't think I need it if I also just have an Exploration already. It can do some powerful things with the Winding Way this turn. Just don't really think that I have to do that here. I think I'm just going to play around Daze, cast Winding Way, try to find Wasteland. Force of Will pitching Stock Up. Everyone is on the Stock Up tech. Then I will play a secondary land and Life from the Loam. And I'm very glad that I pitched that Manabond. And now Life from the Loam is pretty likely to bury my opponent over the next couple of turns. Life from the Loam plus multiple land drops and the ability to cycle Waterlogged Grove is very, very, very strong. Opponent's also down to 3 cards. Double Maze of Ith. So I think I'm going to go land drop, fetch, basic forest, Life from the Loam with 3 targets, second land drop, immediately draw a card. I'm fine doing this. Oh, yeah. 1, 2, and 3. Bam and bam. Ooh, we've got a response. Is there a surgical? Or are we just going to brainstorm and try to look for an answer? There's a Spell Pierce, sure. Did they have a chance to Spell Pierce something earlier in that turn successfully? I think so. I don't remember, though. Opponent can flip a Tameo. I don't know that that's going to matter if I just get Field of the Dead going next turn. It matters if my opponent has like a Force of Negation as a follow-up for this Life from the Loam. That's probably the path that can lead to my loss. Thoughtseize is going to whiff. I think these are all known cards. Dredge, Life from the Loam. Dark Depths is a thing. Let's go Field, Waterlogged Grove, Dark Depths. 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So let's threaten Dark Depths. Yeah, let's threaten Dark Depths and not actually do it. I can leave up a Waterlogged Grove activation for Life from the Loam as well. That's annoying. So I guess I will draw a card in response. No Dredge. That's not what I am looking for. I can potentially set up something where I play another Dark Depths and then have one with 0 counters. That's going to get me a non-land card that has a non-zero chance of finding me a Dismember. I got another Treasure Hunt. All right. I mean, I'm casting that around a Spell Pierce still. Oh shit, it is a Dismember! And my opponent has 0 cards in hand. So this 100% resolves. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. Okay, cool. So I will Dismember a Harbinger of the Seas, land into play, Field of the Dead trigger, and now I can fetch for a Misty as well. Or fetch with a Misty as well. I have 2 zombie tokens. I can pressure a Tameo. That's fine. You may do that. That is a Tameo. So that can block this zombie token and let my opponent ultimate, which is obviously quite good. I will get this forest. I will get snow-covered forest then. Pick up another zombie. Uro. Yeah. Let's do that now. I get to give a love tap to Tameo and get in there for 1. I'll Put a Yavimaya into play. Field of the Dead triggers. Wasteland means that I'm not necessarily doing cool things immediately. But I get to just vomit lands into play. And that probably ends up being good enough. I think I can just double copy Thespian stage. Haven't actually mathed that out yet, but it sure feels like it. So this only gets in for 1 on Tamiyo, but 1 is enough. So 1, 2, and a Thespian stage copy. 1, 2, and a Thespian stage copy. So Thespian stage, target a Dark Depths. My opponent is obligated to Wasteland. Oh yeah, they did not even respond. Okay, then I can do some other gross stuff here. Opponent might be rationalizing that they want to crack their clue token. Can I not math? Was Tamiyo just at a weird number there, and I didn't realize it? If so, oops. I'm not really sure that it matters. I think I just still win. Mana's a bottleneck for my opponent here. I had a better way to play this game, though. I realized that Tamiyo wasn't... If I realized Tamiyo could still ultimate, then I just double Thespian stage copy Field of the Dead and run away with the game pretty easily. With like 3 Field of the Deads and 2 fetch lands, they just present so much damage. Yeah, I messed that up. Wow, opponent has to brainstorm after drawing half their deck. I could have also played a little differently last turn and cast an Uro as well. I just went on autopilot. Alright, opponent went into the tank and is now fetching. And is still digging for something. Harbinger of the Seas is not castable anymore. That was a shuffle. Tamiyo has plussed. We need some sort of Brazen Borrower thing here, I think. Okay, there it is. So now I can't Thespian stage copy Field of the Dead because then my opponent can wasteland it and effectively get both of these lands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can deal 8 damage this turn. That seems fine. And then hopefully double Maze of Ith stops my opponent from gaining life with something like a Goyf. And we're just good. So, end of turn. We'll make some more zombies. Grab an island. Leave the Trop in the deck. Fantastic. Ooh. Surgical Extraction on Uro. You've got it. Do any of these cards in graveyard actually matter if my opponent brings them back with Tamiyo? Not really. So, yeah. Yeah. And I think I just go face here. My opponent can probably just play another Tamiyo. We get a few triggers. So, opponent's at 4. They have a lot of cards. They're facing down a decent amount of bullshit on my end. Yeah, there's that other Tamiyo that I was talking about. This is cute. So, my opponent can do another Tamiyo plus on a secondary Tamiyo in order to have 2 instances of whenever they attack, they get -1, -0. Good play. That'll let them live a turn. So when that's all said and done, the second Tamiyo has 4 loyalty. I guess that's a reason to have killed a Tamiyo. Okay, I mean, that's annoying, but my opponent is still dead on board to the pile of zombies. I'm fine casting a Manabond. Again, there's multiple instances of this right now, so my attack this turn doesn't do anything. It would just lose me a zombie. Engineered Explosives is rough. That probably wins my opponent the game. So that clears out the Horde. And my opponent's 2 damage per turn cycle clock is fast enough to kill me. Unfortunate. I think I win that one if I realize the triple Field of the Dead copy line instead of focusing on the fact that I could have a 20/20. Or I also win this one if I realize that Tamiyo is about to ultimate, because that leads me to the same thing. The loss is my fault here. That is 10 damage. That is close enough to lethal that I will go ahead and concede here. Great match. So in order for me to have green mana with this hand, I have to Ghost Quarter myself. I think with no Manabond or Exploration here, I just mulligan this one. Yeah! This is great. I think I am getting rid of the ETB tapped land here. And I have Manabond into probably Dark Depths, Thespian stage combo very quickly. Oh, we have some sort of pseudo mirror here. Do I draw a blue source? I drew another Manabond. I don't think I'm going to Manabond immediately. You don't really want to put a Dark Depths into play until you are trying to immediately copy it, because your opponent can copy the Dark Depths. But next turn, I can use Blast Zone and Forest to pay for the Thespian Stage Dark Depths activation. Now, there are things like Maze of Ith and Caracas and such that I'm going to need to be cognizant of. The Dark Depths 2020 is not just a guaranteed one-hit KO here. Seeing Ancient Tomb in my opponent's deck makes me think that they're going to have Sphere of Resistance style cards and not Tireless Tracker, whatever the fuck the do crimes look at 5 cards thing is. I'm blanking on the name right now. So we can go for it immediately, or I can assume that my opponent, between Crop Rotation, Life from the Loam, other potential tutors, just like has something that messes with this. I think I am going to slow things down and just treasure hunt here. The next card was Winding Way. I've been betrayed. My turn is much, much worse than if I had just played Dark Depths. That's a time where I wish that I had a Malevolent Rumble over Treasure Hunt. Just going back to the deck check for a second there. Alright, so opponent has an Urza's Saga package in their deck. I have 5 different lands in terms of Field of the Dead names here. My opponent's got Life from the Loam going. They've got a decent amount of mana. Does not seem they have some of the mid-rangey stuff. I think, again, I am going to try to continue to play this game in this fashion. Okay, that's much, much better. I will make a land drop an Exploration, then at end step I Manabond everything in and try to immediately copy my Dark Depths. No, I guess I do it in my opponent's upkeep. I guess there's very little reason not to play the extra Manabond. Right, 1 and 2 activate. There's Yavimaya in play. The 1-2 activate, 1-2 activate. Yeah, okay, actually there are reasons not to do it. So I'll let my opponent untap, and then I will attempt to make my 2020. Punishing Fire in my face is acceptable. You may return that Punishing Fire. And notably, this still taps for green, so Crop Rotation is currently live. Crop Rotation for Wasteland, but that doesn't matter, right? Yeah, that doesn't matter. Wait, why did I think I had 1 more mana than I did? I didn't have ability to double activate. So, does Life from the Loam hit a Caracas style card? No. Wow, so that was no Caracas, no Crop Rotation, no card that dug for either one of those, no Maze of Ith. Got a little lucky there, got the naked win. Okay, so this is the Submerge matchup, probably. Because this Submerge is basically always going to be online and free. And then I just have to decide how much other bullshit I want. Like, I can play Maze of Ith, I can play Force of Vigor, I can play Submerge, I can play Dismember, I can play Fairy. Like, every card in my sideboard is reasonable to play in this matchup, and I just have to figure out what my approach is. My approach might be don't sideboard. I don't want to board out my 2-drop sources of card advantage. I don't want to board out Uro. Most of my lands are good, including Blast Zone. I don't know that I want more Maze of Ith. I don't mind having access to one. I don't know that I want to max out on them. Force of Vigor is nice for Urza's Saga specifically. Does my opponent have Tabernacle? And will they keep it in? I don't think they saw my Field of the Dead that game. No sideboard deck is perfect. My opening hand is okay. It has Dark Depths and Thespian Stage, which is not the way that I would prefer to win. It does not have a way to make additional land drops. It doesn't have a Life from the Loam that I can recur. This is, like, very average. And I can potentially get Wastelanded off of my primary color. I think I'm just going to mulligan it. This is fine. I'm going to get rid of the Ghost Quarter here. And there's a lot of ways to play this game. All right. So that forces them to exile their own fetch land from their graveyard, sort of humorously. That target is mandatory. Manabond is an ETB tapped land. If I Manabond, I don't actually do the thing immediately. So instead, I will Exploration and get a tapped land out of the way. And then next turn, if I want, I can just put my opponent to the test and just go Stage Depths, make the idiot, and see if they die. Crop Rotation will get me if I do that. It's probably just my best line, though. And then if it doesn't work, I just go Treasure Hunt next turn. Get him. Seems like it's working. Caracas still answers this. Oop, turn off auto yields. They're supposed to play Manabond. Oopsie. Maze of Ith is good. Let's try to find an answer to that. Blue mana. Treasure hunt. Found an answer. Wasteland, Maze of Ith. That is a crop rotation. Do you have Caracas? You do have Caracas. Sure. And now we just have to work towards a Field of the Dead based kill instead. The problem here is that my opponent has this Life from the Loam that can give them decent advantage over time, especially if they hit something like a Wasteland quickly. They did not dredge it, though. They've got other things to do. Life from the Loam, Returning Maze. Oh, Ghost Quarter's very good. Sylvan Library's not bad. I think I am just going to Mulch here. That's a lot of cards. Caracas happens to be good against Uro as well, unfortunately. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Recount that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 4 plus 3, 7. That's forest and snow-covered forest. I think I discard my Uro so that I mana bond in every land. Not what I was expecting to do. Super glad that my opponent tapped their Ghost Quarter. It enables me to do this. Do I want to Wasteland them? 1, 2, 3. Ignoring Wasteland. 4, 5, 6. Another land drop still does it. And it makes them use their turn if they want to get back Ghost Quarter. I think I'm into that. It also denies a shuffle for Sylvan Library, although I don't really know that that's going to happen. Alright, so opponent brought in fairies. They have Urza Saga, which we already either knew about or predicted. I forget which. I think knew about. I think I saw a one-drop artifact of some kind last game. I don't think it was Soul Guide Lantern. I think it was something else. Looks like my opponent has taken some damage to pick up an extra card here. Alright, there is the Loam. We get Saga going. They don't have additional land drops. Never mind. And there is the Ghost Quarter. I'll convert it into a different land. I have an Uro, so I can get a redraw that eats up my opponent's Caracas mana. Oh, right. Another fairy. Seems good. Banger off the top? Not a banger. I'm still attacking for half of my opponent's life total, like, to be clear. This is not that bad. I don't play this one because of opposing Thespian stage, and also maybe Field of the Dead later. So opponent's not dead here, right? They can make an Urza Saga token, block one of these, take 6, assuming nothing else happens. And then will they have... There's an opposing Thespian stage, by the way. And then after that, it's just will they have something like Shadow Spear that puts us over the top. Currently unclear whether or not something like Thespian stage copying Urza's Saga will be fast enough to stop what I'm doing. There's the stage. There's the depths. So opponent can copy their thing and go exactly to 1 after blocking with a Merit Lage. I am at 19 life. A crackback will kill me. I've got plenty of outs, but I do have to hit 1. My opponent have Ghost Quarter in hand. I think they have Ghost Quarter in hand. Or potentially could just Pithing Needle stage. So this will be 6 damage. Opponent's at 1. Drop a Maze of Ith. Urza Saga does Urza Saga stuff. An Expedition map. Alright, there's a Wasteland for Maze of Ith, at which point I am dead. Yep. But we'll force another game here. I still don't know that I'm sideboarding. Like, I could take out Submerge to play Fairy to fight Life from the Loam, and that's, like, reasonable. Maybe I want to do that. Yeah. Absolutely. Opponent did the called shot, Wasteland, Yavimaya. The hand gets a lot worse, but this is otherwise strong. We do have 2 Field of the Dead, so I might be a little slow to hit all of the different named cards, but that's fine. Yavimaya, Exploration, Field of the Dead. I think I'm going to refill my water. I think we're in for a slog. All right. Don't get dehydrated while you're playing Magic. It's no bueno. Stage, which is tapping for green mana right now, into map. Opponent could work towards Dark Depths relatively quickly. A Mox Diamond to further accelerate. Getting rid of a Bojuka Bog, which is a reasonable card in this matchup. So let's Mulch. Force of Vigor on Exploration. I think if you're doing that, you do that in the upkeep, where I have literal 0 chance of playing a bonus land. What did they get rid of? Their own exploration. So there was some real cost to that. Sure. I'm going to go ahead and Wasteland. Sometimes my opponent has a crop rotation as their final card, and this gets slightly punished. Yep. Ooh, I don't know if I like that decision. So if my opponent does not hit a land, they can't actually start making Urza Saga tokens, and they're kind of forced to use their entire turn to Expedition Map instead. They lucked out. Now I Loam and start Wastelanding them into Oblivion. Yep. I guess I can let them make their decision what they are doing with their mana and then Wasteland them. Right, they're going for the 1/1 token, which makes sense to me because they can still do the other one. Or rather, it's a 3/3 token, but, you know. I'm in no danger of dying to this 3/3. I'm going to be taking natural draws. I would like to find a Manabond or Exploration. Just rips this game wide open. Opponent's Bojuka Bog is in graveyard, so I don't have to worry about them getting that and clearing my wasteland. Opponent is just going for a Windswept Heath, as it's an extra look at a Life from the Loam. I'm just taking a natural draw here. Is Uro better? Like, do I actually need to wasteland my opponent immediately? Uro for the additional land drop here might actually just be better. I don't need to dredge. Manabond is so good. So I will put in the waterlogged groves so that I can cast the Manabond, but I'm not actually going to do the Manabond thing this turn. And this doesn't cost me a life because Yavimaya. Opponent needs a hell of a turn here. They can surveil into Life from the Loam, Bojuka Bog, and that's pretty good, but I'll still be left with a Life from the Loam and a Winding Way. But I think Life from the Loam to replay Bojuka Bog is really what they need here. 18. Wasteland's not bad. I don't think I dredge that. A Dark Depths. That's a little awkward. Manabond makes me put everything into play. All Winding Way. Select land. Ghost Quarter's a thing. I guess I will Life from the Loam. Thespian Stage Wasteland. Yeah. If they've got a fairy. They don't. I'm going to give up a zombie here, I think, to just put a wasteland into play preemptively in case it's hardcast Force of Vigor on this Manabond. Feel smart. Now, do I want to take out their wasteland? Opponent has just had enough. Honestly, fair. I'm in a pretty dominant position in that spot there. But we don't make the 4-1 or 5-0 record necessary for me to claim my bounty. It was a good league, though. Alright. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I built a good deck, but it was not very good at showing off Submerge. I think trying to slot Submerge into a land-style deck was maybe flawed from the start. Again, kind of like how I talked about at the beginning, the lands deck does not want to have expensive cards in it. And if you are trying to do something like Up the Beanstalk to make Submerge better, then you are taking a deck that wants to be low to the ground and more or less cap out at 2 and making it cap out at 5 instead, even if some of those cards are effectively not 5, 6, 7, 8 drops because of mechanics like Delve. I boarded out Submerge in most or all rounds. There were times that I was looking to draw Submerge, and there were times where Submerge might have been better than Dismember, but within the confines of this deck specifically, where Manabond is trying to make you discard all of your non-land cards, having reactive cards that are supposed to sit in your hand until the right moment is bad, and having reactive cards that need to be enabled before they work is worse. Now, when we, get paired against Cradle Control, and all of a sudden we have 4 Submerges we can play as these massive tempo things that are already online because our opponent is playing green, that's a totally different story, and that becomes actively good there. Gameplay in this deck was pretty good. Field of the Dead popped off. Thespian Stage Dark Depths did some stuff. Uro was fine versus Red Prison. We had some tight rounds and good gameplay, so even if Submerge didn't work out, the rest of the deck did. I'm still a little unsure about my sideboard, like should I actually be playing those Maze of Iths? I don't know, but I sure did bring them in a lot of rounds. All right, folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. And if you need some cards, you know where to go. I'm going to go get myself some lunch because this was a heck of a slog. It was very fun to record, but it's time for food. Have a great rest of the day. See ya.